Good morning again and welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari on MCTV, Multicultural TV. And my first guest this morning is Dr. Justin Ram. Let's talk to him now. Good morning, how are you?
Hi, good morning, Bo. How are you doing?
Take the volume up, please. Good morning, Dr. Ram.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Bo. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not hearing you well. I want to have my people take the volume up a little bit. Okay, are we okay? Now, first of all, I want to not just say good morning, but thank you for agreeing to come on the program. I know you have a follow-up meeting right after this, and I'm grateful that you took the time to be here this morning. We have the COP26 conference taking place from Sunday in Glasgow. And this is a follow-up to the major meeting at which so many countries signed 5 years ago in Paris, the Paris Accord. That is being preceded by a meeting in Rome by the G20, where the richest countries in the world are meeting to talk about issues related to the COP 2026, but other issues as well. What has happened in the 5 years between Paris and Glasgow that we need to take note of or that we need to be concerned about? I don't have any sound. Justin, I don't have any sound from you. Check your mic if it's muted. Take out the headphone. Let's see. Maybe, hello? You have to take it off the phone or else we won't get any sound. Okay. I'm going to break for a minute and let's get back online, okay? All right.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
You did the right thing. So now we're giving you things. Republic Bank thanks you and wants to reward you for getting vaxxed. Win $5,000 in prizes every week, plus one of 2 cars in December. You took care of your health, and now we're taking care of you. $5,000 and a chance to win a car. See press and log on to republictt.com for details.
Mangalese Trading Company Limited.
Specialist in PVC ceiling, gypsum ceiling, suspended ceilings, medallions, lights, metal framings, and SPCS flooring, known as vinyl plank. Now introducing Mangalese Foods, wholesale and retail, distributor of the family brand of food items. Our range of products include rice, sugar, chickpeas, split peas, and soybean oil. Mangalese Foods deliver exceptional products. We offer timely and efficient service. We are located at 9 Francis Lala Road, Charlieville, Chaguanas. Contact us at 672-9889, 740-5569, or 336-4373.
Mangalese Trading Company Limited.
Welcome to the Value Optical Rock Different Festival Red Carpet, where we... Oh, wait. Renee, is that you?
Yes, darling. It is I.
Okay. What are you wearing today?
These are Vogue frames from VO, darling. Yes, boy, I get 15% off of these frames and then I get an next 10% off the add-ons, boy!
Book online or hurry down to rock your look at the Value Optical Rock the Frame Festival now. Value Optical, expert care for your eyes.
Welcome back. We had some technical problems just now, and we didn't have any sound from Dr. Ram in Barbados, but I think we got that sorted out now. We were asking him the question, what transpired between the Paris Accord having to do with climate change and related issues, and the Glasgow meeting, which is taking place this coming week. What has transpired since that time? What do we concerned about? What do we need to take note of? Okay?
Yes. Okay. Bo, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Yes.
Take the volume
Okay.
up because I want listeners to hear him clearly. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, when Paris happened in 2015, it actually held a lot of promise for the world because it was for the first time that all of the major economies and I guess all of the countries that are signatories to the COP agreement, which is really 197 countries globally, agreed that we needed to limit global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, certainly by 2050. During that time as well, there was a commitment by the rich nations. So as you mentioned, the G20 countries are meeting today. In fact, that is happening in Rome in the lead up to COP, and they had already committed significant sums of money. Now, they made the commitments, but what has really transpired since then is that the monies have not really flowed to the less developed countries to help them adapt to climate change. Because one of the real issues here for us globally is that the impacts of climate change are really a result of what many of the developed countries have done and the carbon emissions that they have already emitted into the atmosphere. It is sort of what has happened historically is now coming home to roost, as it were. But the worst impacts of that is actually being felt by the lesser developed countries. And for us in the Caribbean, we of course at the front line of that. So we're sort of like these frontier countries that are dealing with the impacts of climate change. And we have not really seen the amount of resources that were promised to come to us. And even if the resources are there, Bo, it's quite difficult for countries to get access to them. And to be quite honest with you, we have to be really concerned because the world has not really made progress on reducing its carbon emissions. And I think we're really at risk of going beyond that 1.5 degrees Celsius rise that we agreed in 2015 would be important for us. Something drastic needs to happen. We need to have all countries having net zero targets. Some in the Caribbean have done a good job, others not so. So, there's a lot for us to be concerned about.
Okay, there's the issue of money. First of all, $100 million was the target. Billion, sorry. It's so much money, I could not conceive of it. But $100 billion was the target coming out of the Paris Accord. The Prime Minister of Britain, Mr. Boris Johnson, was in the United Nations, and he basically chastised the industrialized world, the rich countries, for not coming up with the money and not taking the financial commitments seriously. Greta Thunberg, that young activist, in a sense spoke fun at the statement and the calls for the funding because she said there was so much talk about climate change and very little action. And she used the phrase blah, blah, blah in order to reinforce the idea that plenty talk but little action. So one issue is the money. The second issue is the action itself. Also, the conversation is changing. Now people are saying that it's very difficult for us to reverse the damage that has been done to the planet through climate change. And what we need to deal with now are issues of mitigation and adaptation. The reversal process is almost impossible. And the other issue is the one you raised, which is access to money to do that. And as you so correctly said, this is a problem, all the sea level rise issues and so on that the Caribbean has to face. These things have been triggered by 100 years of industrialization and more in the industrialized countries. So what can we expect of COP26, given that we have not put up the money, plenty talk and no action? The industrialized countries are responsible, but they don't want to put up the money, or they have not put up the money. We've got to deal with this matter. We've got to have mitigation actions in the Caribbean. We've got to have adaptation issues addressed in the Caribbean. We've got to act. It is not about talk anymore. What can we expect from COP26?
That's a really difficult question to answer, and I would suggest that our expectations be less
Modest.
than modest and what it should be. Why do I say that? Because now we're going into a process with respect to these COP negotiations, a process that has been ongoing. This is the 26th meeting of the Conference of Parties. This is a process that has been ongoing for quite some time, and I'm really not sure how this process has changed to ensure that we see a different outcome at the end of it. In fact, many commentators are not really expecting much out of this. However, I have to say that in the lead up to it, there has really been a lot of discussion around what needs to happen and what is required. And in fact, the United Kingdom, because they are hosting this particular Conference of Parties, the COP26 in Glasgow, they have been very, very active, going around to different regions of the world, trying to hear their voices and to bring their concerns on. So in fact, the head of their delegation did come to the Caribbean earlier this year and had many discussions with our leaders and took our concerns on board. Our primary concern in the Caribbean has, of course, been the access to finance, concessional resources. That is a particular problem for us because usually those concessional resources are linked to your levels of income, your per capita income. And the Caribbean is seen as being middle to high income, and so does not really have access to those resources. But what we have been arguing in the Caribbean is to say, you cannot use per capita income as a metric to provide those resources to us. You have to look at our overall levels of vulnerability. We are at the front line of what has been happening with the climate. As we see every year with respect to the hurricane season, how much billions of dollars of damage that causes. Knock wood, we have had a fairly calm hurricane season this year, but it is beyond only hurricanes. It also impacts the cultivation of crops. Are we experiencing droughts? In our dry seasons have been drier than usual. And then when we have our wet seasons, we have excessive amount of rainfall, which leads to a lot of flooding. So there's a real challenge for us. And I in many ways, I cannot argue against the young climate activist Greta Thunberg when she says that she's only hearing blah blah blah, because that in effect is what has been happening. There's a lot of grand talk around this. but we need to start seeing the action. And I think, Bo, what has to happen here is that we have to stop depending only on governments to do what is right here. This has to be a real public-private partnership. And I would suggest that the private in that PPP has to actually take a much more commanding and leading role. They have to be the ones leading it. I imagine for us to see real action here, it has to be bottom up and not necessarily top down as what we have been expecting on coming out of these conference of party meetings. I think that probably has to be the major change that we see. We need to see many more private sector actors at the table, and they, of course, driving a lot of the discussion rather than the other way around. Let us try to build this up from the bottom up and see if that might lead to some greater change beyond what we have seen already.
But this thing is going to cost a lot of money, and somebody has to pay for it. And given the way the world is organized, it is only the richest countries in the world that can really finance this through the various institutions, etc. What happened to the $100 billion that was anticipated up to 2020? And did the Caribbean get any of that? And what did we use it for?
Yeah, well, it never really materialized, and a lot of those resources were meant to flow through what's called the the Green Climate Fund, which is a multilateral agency which was really set up to help us deal with the impacts of climate change. It is really the agency whereby the major donor countries would channel their resources through, and then, of course, lesser developed countries would be able to access those resources from the GCF. So the quantum of resources never materialized. And then there's an additional problem. When you have to access those resources, it is actually very, very difficult to do so. There are a lot of conditionalities associated with it. You have to get accredited to be able to get these resources. And many of our countries simply do not have the capacity on the ground to allow them to access these resources. So I would say that what really has to happen here is that we need to have certainly a rules-based approach is required, but that rules-based approach has to be clear. It has to be something that has come about from a consultation between the rich countries and the poorer countries, so that we have clear rules. We know what everyone has to do. But at the end of the day, we want to see action. And if the money isn't coming through, then it is almost impossible to take that action. But Bo, before I end on this, I have to say something here. Going green and dealing and adapting to climate change is also good for our economies here in the Caribbean. And I think that we cannot simply depend on resources from the donor community or from multilateral institutions. I think that we have to look at how we mobilize our own resources for this. It is really, doing these actions really will provide us with what is required for us to survive into the future, if you understand what I'm saying. Because what we're seeing coming with climate change, the rising sea levels, the changes in temperature, the frequency of storms, we need to build resilience to that. And I think we have to now consider how we mobilize some of our own resources. Remember, in the Caribbean, we probably have about $50 billion of liquidity sitting down in our bank deposits. We have to find some way to mobilize those resources that can provide a return for those depositors who have those resources in the banks, make sure that the banks are not losing, but it also means that we're utilizing those resources in a way that builds our own resilience. And ultimately, by doing this, I think it gives us an opportunity to grow our economies, certainly out of this pandemic that we've currently found ourselves in as well.
Okay, well, I think we've gotten somewhere in the discussion in advancing the game, in the sense that one of the problems is money, but another problem is organization for action and action itself. And the second issue is, where is the money going to come from? And what you are saying is that, yes, the world has a responsibility to deal with this matter because they created the problem, especially the countries, but that we also have a challenge that we must address, and therefore we must find the means of paying for it. Now, I'm going to have to break for a minute, but I just want to leave something with you. And when we come back, we will probe that a little bit because it has to do with finance and money. I got a note from Avinash Prasad, who is advisor to the Prime Minister of Barbados. And she, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, has taken a very, very prominent role on behalf of the Caribbean and developing climate issue. This is not a new issue for her. When she was in the opposition, she was big on the small islands developing states issues, and she was very big on the climate change issues, and she has taken up this issue. And this note from Mr. Dr. Prasad indicated that the Prime Minister has asked him and formally announced that he would lead a team working with the Green Climate Fund, the fund you talked about, to establish an international green bank to finance the transition to a more sustainable future locally, regionally, and where appropriate, beyond. So basically, she has not only raised the issue and impacted the issue. This is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Ms. Mia Mottley. She has actually put forward a proposal, and she has appointed someone from Barbados to look after Barbados' interests, but also the Caribbean's interests, and to create the conditions for the transfer of money from the Green Fund to an international bank dedicated for this purpose in this part of the world. So I want to exchange some views on that when we come back, and we're going to take a break now. Okay?
Okay, great.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
You did the right thing. So now we're giving you things. Republic Bank thanks you and wants to reward you for getting vaxxed. Win $5,000 in prizes every week, plus one of 2 cars in December. You took care of your health, and now we're taking care of you. $5,000 and a chance to win a car. See press and log on to republictt.com for details.
Mangalese Trading Company Limited.
Specialist in PVC ceiling, gypsum ceiling, suspended ceilings, medallions, lights, metal framings, and SPCS flooring, known as vinyl plank. Now introducing Mangalese Foods, wholesale and retail, distributor of the family brand food items. Our range of products include rice, sugar, chickpeas, split peas, and soybean oil. Mangalese Foods deliver exceptional products. We offer timely and efficient service. We are located at 9 Francis Lala Road, Charlieville, Chaguanas. Contact us at 672-9889, 740-5569, or 336-4373.
Mangalese Trading Company Limited.
As we celebrate the Festival of Light over Darkness, let Magic Mist Services Limited take away the hassle of your Diwali home cleaning and maintenance needs. With our team of professional service team members, we will ensure your home receives the magic touch. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Shub Diwali from Magic Mist Services Limited.
Welcome back. We are talking with Dr. Justin Ram this morning, and we are dealing with COP26, which is taking place in Glasgow, Scotland, but talking about climate change and related issues, and more particularly, how do you finance the changes that need to be taking place in countries of the Caribbean? And I just mentioned to him that the Prime Minister of Barbados, Ms. Mia Mottley, had basically announced that she was appointing her special advisor to play a role in establishing an international financial agency, an international bank for climate change related issues, focused on Caribbean needs and maybe wider regional needs, but that what they would do basically is try to transfer funds from the Green Fund to this particular institution, which would make a difference in making access to money and availability of money possible for climate action. So, Justin, can I have your thoughts? Yeah.
Yes, well, I think this is a really good initiative, and the Prime Minister of Barbados, sorry, has really been leading the charge. I think as a leading advocate and voice coming out of the Caribbean on these particular issues, and so the executive director of the Green Climate Fund was in Barbados recently. And so they have signed an agreement to establish this green bank here in Barbados. And of course, as you would have heard, Professor Prasad will be heading up that and establishing that bank. Now, this is really good news, and I'm happy to hear that it's not only going to be focused on Barbados, but perhaps the region as well. It means that the Green Climate Fund will provide I guess a significant amount of the seed financing to capitalize this bank, and on that capital, I guess the Green Bank, because it will be a bank, will be able to raise much more capital, I guess, from other investors to use those resources now for greening our economies, be that transitioning to renewable energy or energy efficiency, or helping us build infrastructure that is more resilient to the impacts of the changing climate. So this is really good news, and I hope that other leaders of the Caribbean would also follow suit. Because if this Green Bank has a primary focus on Barbados, but yet has some focus on the region, it might mean that other leaders might want to consider doing something similar, or certainly trying to collaborate with this Green Bank that will be established here.
Do you sense that there are differences in attitude and approaches among the countries of CARICOM? Are some countries more serious about it, and some countries laissez-faire?
Yes, well, of course, I think some countries, some leaders see the urgency of this more than others, and so you can get a sense of that by seeing the type of advocacy that you see out there, not only domestically but also on international fora as well. So and of course it's difficult for some countries, because some countries are actually dependent, as you know, on fossil fuels for their economic growth and economic stability. So actually, climate change is a sort of a conundrum for those countries.
You mean like Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, well, definitely like Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago really needs to start thinking about life after petroleum and fossil fuels, and how do you now transition to your net zero targets? So that when you look at net zero targets across the Caribbean, some are very ambitious. So Barbados has a very ambitious target of net zero by 2030. That's 9 years away, while some countries have that particular target by 2050. So, some countries see the need for this and the urgency for it. Others are a little slow to get on board the bandwagon.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you believe in an afterlife, you can't prepare for an afterlife when the life is gone. You have to prepare while the life is there. All right? So you prepare for the afterlife while you are alive. And it's the same thing with oil and gas and energy. You can't prepare for a post-energy, sustainable, and resilient future when the oil and gas is finished, or when you have done the most possible damage and you then have a retrieval problem to deal with. You have to prepare for it while you have some oil and gas, you can get some resources out of it, etc. And you contain it as best you can from an environmental point of view. But you've got to prepare, you've got to do the structural changes while these things are taking place. Do you think, I mean, you know Trinidad and Tobago very well, and do you think that we are serious about the way we are going about our business, first of all, in terms of structural changes that are necessary to transform the economy, and secondly, transformation of that economy in such a way that we will be climate change responsive, environmentally conservationist in the way that we approach it, and green in orientation and future direction?
Well, my simple question to that is no. I don't think that Trinidad sees the urgency of what is upon it. I mean, I think we have become so accustomed to the rents associated with oil and gas that, we think that life is going to continue. We're sort of still waiting for oil prices to rise to sort of see us out of this problem. As you were mentioning earlier, we have been in recession for 5-6 years, probably going on a 7th year now. And I'm wondering what else is required for us Trinis to bolt us into action. So with that, I have to say that in the last budget, I was happy to see that there was some measures to encourage the uptake of electric vehicles. But what is the policy around that? When you buy electric vehicle, you have to be able to charge it somewhere. And so is there a policy in place to ensure that charging points are now going to be constructed and established in convenient places for persons who would buy these vehicles? So it cannot just be policies that come out of the blue and don't seem to be grounded in a proper policy framework, because this framework for us moving away from fossil fuels is one that's so important. It means the diversification of our economy. Ultimately, it means the moving away from a way of life that we have become so accustomed to. But there needs to be that vision that understands that in doing so, you're actually building a much brighter and better future for the country. There needs to be a belief in that going green is actually good for well-being and for economic stability as well. And I don't seem to see that coming out of Trinidad and Tobago. And so I think those discussions have to happen. But Bo, as I said before, I think a lot of this really has to be coming from the bottom up. That is where it has to be. I think that polls need to start showing are citizens interested in this. And if citizens are interested, then perhaps our leaders will start to take greater interest in this particular topic.
All right. So you think the push has to come from the people by a rise in consciousness Because one of the consequences of all of these things, the climate crisis that has emerged and will continue to intensify, is that, I mean, a lot of people have to move from where they are living and find somewhere else to live. If you are doing okay as the people in California, United States of America, you can move from California or San Francisco or Los Angeles or wherever. You can move to Texas, I was in the U.S. recently, and what I have found is that a lot of the Silicon Valley companies are now moving their offices to Texas. So they are not going to Austin, but they are going to places like Dallas and other places. And and a lot of it is, basically fleeing the forest fires, fleeing a situation where things are becoming difficult. And of course, another problem in California is the high cost of living and doing business. But it is more, and then you have the climate refugees, people who are forced to leave, abandon their homes. They don't know where they're going. They have to find a place to go. And this is what is happening. So it's a people problem that people need to begin to address.
Of course. And I think this all leads to this whole idea of stranded assets. We usually would relate that to the oil and gas industry not being able to take the oil out of the ground because we need to leave that oil there or else it will contribute to climate change. But stranded assets also mean that where people are living, and in Trinidad and Tobago, year after year, we're seeing certain neighborhoods constantly being flooded out. Those persons are likely to become climate refugees as well.
Yes.
They may not have to leave the island, but they have to find somewhere else to go. And so these are issues that will impact us in the coming years. And as you rightly said, now is the time to start planning for these things instead of waiting for it. And Bo, I really have to make this point here. When we speak about these things, we're not trying to be fearmongers or prophets of doom. All we are saying is that we can see what is coming down the line, and let us start to prepare and take actions today. Because the longer you delay in taking action, the costs are going to be even higher. Start doing that now. And I think you're absolutely spot on. This whole area of climate refugees and the ability of people to move is something that we're going to have to be mindful of. Where are our people going to go? Even in Port of Spain, when there's rainfall and if there's a high tide, there's a lot of flooding.
Yes, it's all over the country.
Do we even have to consider moving our capital city, or how do we even build defenses for Port of Spain? It's all over. So, this is a major issue. And every time there's a hurricane in the Caribbean, Bo, you find that people have to leave. I think
yes, of course.
When Maria hit Dominica in 2017, I think about 25% of the population had to leave at that time.
Yes. All right, we've got to close now, Dr. Ram, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you made a special effort to be here this morning. I want to thank you very much for doing that. And I just want to establish for viewers that Dr. Ram is a full-fledged national of Trinidad and Tobago, born and bred, that he's a Trini to the bone. He lives in Barbados now. He has worked with the CDB, which is a Caribbean Development Bank. And he is a person who has worked all over the world and continues to work all over the world. But his heart and soul is in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. Thank you very much for being with me this morning, Dr. Ram.
Thank you very much, Bo. Thank you.
All right. Well, all the best to you. Have a good weekend and have a nice week next week. And we will follow what happens in the COP, the COP26 summit, and see what happens. I've lined up some people to talk after the summit is over, so that we can, the conference is over, so that we can get a view of what has actually happened and what are its implications. Thank you for viewing Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari signing off now so that we can go to the 8 o'clock news. Thank you very much.